Hold on. Good evening, everybody. This is the City Council meeting of September 21st, 2015. Let's start with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Wright. Here. Lorente. Here. Weifenbach. Here. Doyle. Here. Estes. Here. Lewis. Here. Drew. Here. Roberts. Here. Nordstrom. Here. Scott. Here. We have quorum.
Okay, next we'll have the invocation by Pastor Corey Hariff from Rapid City Young Life. You're welcome to participate, but not required. And following the invocation, we'll go right into the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's an honor to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we just want to thank you for this beautiful day. God, thank you that you know us and you love us. God, I pray for this council meeting tonight. Lord, we just pray that your presence would be here, that you would guide this meeting. Lord, we thank you for the service of our councilmen and women. We thank you for our mayor. We thank you for just the ways that you're working in our city. God, we pray for the youth of our city. We pray that you would move in their hearts. We pray for the homeless. We pray for racial relations. God, we pray for churches to be unified. And Lord, we just want to say that we love you and thank you that you love us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Now on to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to tonight's agenda? We'll go to Brad Estes.
No, I give me 1 second here, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to I make a motion we remove item number 38, and if I get a second, I'd like to retain the floor.
withdraw it, you can just ask him.
No, I guess if we don't have a second, I can't talk. Okay. You know, after the Public Works meeting, I'd gotten several emails from people wanting to know, and on July 6th, the landfill came forward with a request to buy 3 pieces of equipment off the national contract. And on July 20th, we authorized them to go out for bids. The problem is that if you go back to July 20th, and maybe we can get Joel or somebody to, 2 of the authorizations are for this, the medium-sized. They're identical. 2 authorizations are for the medium-sized piece of equipment for $280,000. There's not an authorization to go out for bid for the large piece of equipment for $380,000. And I found that out, and I just feel we should, I don't want to, I made the motion to Public Works to award it, and I don't, you know, now that I know that there's that discrepancy, I just feel compelled to bring it forward to the council.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to remove item 38 from the agenda. Any other discussion? Amanda Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just assume this item stayed on the agenda because the council has the ability to reject all bids and put it back out for bid rather than to totally remove it from the agenda and not take any action on it one way or the other. So we have options. We can either deny it, we can approve it, or we can reject it and put it back out for bid. So I believe it needs to stay on the agenda, and so I won't be supporting this motion at this time.
If I could,
Okay, we'll go to Jerry Wright.
I concur with Amanda that we should take care of it as an item and make a decision as council. Thank you.
Okay, back to Brad.
I just wanted to bring it to the council at this point, and we have a gentleman in the audience that was signed out a speaker request form, and I didn't, you know, so anyway, I respect your opinion, and I just wasn't sure where and when we should bring this up, but I wanted to bring it to the council's. So anyway, since I made a motion, I'll probably vote no, but I understand where you're coming from.
Alderman Estes, you can always withdraw your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to remove item 38 from the agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion fails. Any other items for the agenda, or modifications to the agenda? Okay, second by Richie Nordstrom. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. On to awards and recognition. Now we have a presentation for Citizen of the Month. And can we have Alice Sullivan come up, please?
Sure. Want to read this here? Okay, thank you. So Citizen of the Month. It all started about a year ago. Alice Sullivan, started 1 year ago with Allison Sullivan doing her daily 3-mile walks along Sheridan Lake Road. She came across a plastic bag and decided to fill it with trash she had picked up along the way. By the time she got home, the bag was completely full, and every day since, Allison takes a bag from her home and fills it with trash during her strolls. She can be seen walking along Sheridan Lake Road on most days, doing her part to make our community a better place. People have become accustomed to Alice's efforts. As they drive by, many of them wave, honk, or even stop to thank her. She's also inspired others to do the same thing. And I can attest to that. As I was driving to council tonight, I was driving up Catron Boulevard. No lie, there's a guy on a lawnmower, riding a lawnmower, driving up with it with various bags of garbage attached to it, reaching over along the medium, or the shoulder, not the medium, picking up garbage and sticking them up and driving farther up the road. It was crazy. So you've inspired others we really appreciate that. But so Alice feels that her small service is a way to give back to the community and do something good for us. A community that she fell in love with in 1954, shortly after her marriage to her high school sweetheart, Gerald, which when they vacationed here to the Black Hills and decided to move from Kansas before having jobs. The couple, married now 62 years, have made quite a life here in the hills, raising 4 children, Daryl, Brett, Donette, and Bradley. At various times throughout her life, Alice worked as a secretary for numerous schools and businesses. Alice moved back to Kansas for 19 years to help with her elderly mother, then returned in 1997 after her mother's death. In addition to her productive daily walks, Alice plays the piano, is a member of the Red Hat Society, and enjoys sewing. But walking is her passion. At age 80, she still walks 3 miles a day except Sundays, so everybody can just start feeling guilty right now. Alice is a prime example of how volunteerism and how seemingly small acts by one individual can reap huge impacts on a community. Alice sets an example to all of us that we can each make a difference and inspire others. We are grateful that Alice is part of the Rapid City community. We are proud of the service that she does. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it here. Let's scoot over to the right a little bit and get a picture.
Veteran of the Month for this month of September. Our veteran is Charlotte, joined the United States Air Force in 1983 and retired in 2008. Charlotte Avila here. There you are, Charlotte. Thank you. Didn't see you there. Should sit closer. Thanks, Charlotte. Charlotte joined the United States Air Force in 1983 and retired in 2008. And during her 25 years of service, she was stationed at numerous bases throughout the United States, serving as a vehicle operations dispatcher for many years. While at Nellis Air Force Base, she retrained to a health care services management career and utilized the training while stationed in the European theater for 7 years. She was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base and worked at the 28th Medical Group until her retirement in 2008. During her military career, Charlotte received a number of medals and awards, including the Air Force Commendation Medal, Air Force Achievement Medal with 2 Oak Leaf clusters, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Air Force Outstanding Unit Award with Valor, and 6 Oak Leaf clusters, Air Force Good Conduct Medal with 5 Oak Leaf clusters, Air Reserve Forces Meritorious Service Medal, and the National Defense Service Medal with 1 Service Star. During her military career, the Wisconsin native met and married her husband, Stephen, who is also in the Air Force, and obtained an associate's degree through the Community College of the Air Force in healthcare and management. After her husband's death in 2012, Charlotte became involved with VFW Post 1273 here in Rapid City, serving as its quartermaster, and with American Legion Post 175. She's a life member of the DAV Chapter 3 and a VFW Post 2730. Charlotte served our country with dedication and sacrifice and continues to serve our veterans, making her an excellent choice as our September Veteran of the Month. On behalf of the citizens of Rapid City, we'd like to send our gratitude. Charlotte, thank you. Would you like to say a word? Would you like to say?
Now it's time for the Beautification Award, the Yard of the Month, and in just a couple months we'll have the Snow Shoveling Award. And this is Kathy Robeson.
Rose, would you come up, please? Is it Dubois or Dubois? I've just found out I've always pronounced her name wrong. I've tried to put a French connotation. Rose Dubois lives at 2220 South Ridge Road. And she was one of the wonderful people who donated their garden to be part of the garden walk this year for the Garden Club and Master Gardener Garden Walk. And I fell in love with the front of her yard, and I wish all of you could see the back because the front doesn't tell you anything. But the front of the yard is a lovely addition to the neighborhood, and that is why I nominated Rose to be Citizen Yard of the Month. The Beautification Committee meets once a month. By the way, we need a member, so anyone that is interested, please contact Parks and Rec. But our goal is to promote the enhancement in personal property within the city of Rapid City, and that includes the overall appearance, the structures, the yard landscape, and hardscape. Rose's yard definitely epitomizes that. Along with this recognition tonight, she receives a certificate signed by Jeff Bigler and the mayor, as well as a sign that she can put in the window, and a $25 gift certificate from Plantsmith that was actually purchased through funds that were donated to the Parks and Rec from Modern Woodman. And so you receive that as well. But I want to thank everyone who's been a part of the beautification. We do have one more for the year. Please put in your applications for yourself or your neighbors. And I thank you very much, Rose.
Thank you.
It makes all those weeds I pulled worth it. Thank you very much.
Can we have our Fire Chief Mike Multivern come up, please? Now we have a few recognitions of long-term city employees. And these city employees are the foundation for some of the great organizations we have within the city. We're celebrating tonight, I think, 25 and 30-year employees, and Mike Multivern is one of them. Mike Multivern joined the Rapid City Fire Department as a firefighter medic in 1990. He was promoted to lieutenant of the Education Division in 1998 and held that position until 2001. At that time, he transferred to the Operations Division as lieutenant until 2005 and then was promoted to captain and held that position until 2009. He was promoted to assistant chief of the Training Division in October 2009, and in May 2010 promoted to fire chief by Mayor Alan Hanks. He graduated from the National Fire Academy's Executive Officer Degree Program in 2013, and proud to have people like Mike around here working in the city. Mike and I have worked together for a number of years. He is a great asset to the city. So Mike, congratulations on 25 years.
Well, thank you. Just a couple of things. I've truly been blessed to not only work for the city for 25 years, but work for the fire department. Serve alongside 142 other members of the department. I can tell you that they are, every one of them is dedicated and committed to this community and serving each and every one of you. So me, I'm very humbled to serve alongside of them. They really do a good job in propping me up, and I'd love to say I'd be up here for many more of these awards or acknowledgments, but I think I'm nearing the end here soon. But anyway, it's been truly an honor to serve the city. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a little picture?
Sure.
It says it's nearing the end, but that was supposed to be a surprise.
Not yet. So I also get the privilege then, back to the 142 members that work alongside me at the fire department, I get to recognize the gentleman that I started with back in September of 1990. Tom, if you'd come up. So back in the day, we started on a Monday, spent the first couple of days traveling around the city, learning a little bit about defensive driving and getting registered with Human Resources, and they taught us a few things about how city government worked and all that. And then we spent about 2 or 3 days basically learning the job. And after about 5 days, they put you on an engine, and you kind of hit the ground running. And Tom and I started together. Our saying, always walking in the hallway, giving each other a little high five, is day one. That's kind of the bond that we've always had and always shared. And there's honesty and loyalty that goes with that bond. And so not only am I recognizing him as a 25-year employee, but certainly a dear friend of mine and someone that I've come through the ranks with and really grown to appreciate. And he comes into my office now as a captain and tell me how, and really tells me how it is, and I really appreciate that. So the rest of the guys don't know that. They'd probably get in trouble if they knew that, but luckily we're not. Anyway, Tom started in 90 as well. He was promoted to lieutenant in July of 1999 and then captain in 2014. And he served Station 7 out in the far reaches of northeast Rapid City and does a good job there. Truly is a leader in the organization and does a good job with young firefighters and just taking care of the north sector of town. So we really appreciate his service. But Tom, thank you.
Thank you. It occurred to me today that I've had more anniversaries with Mike than I had with my wife. So.
And I want to say, too, I object. In the 1980s, mustaches for policemen were cool, and they're still cool for firemen, and that bothers me a little bit. So, good job. Let's go over here and have a...
Okay, if we could have Sergeant Dale McCabe come forward, please. Sergeant McCabe is being recognized for 25 years with the city today. And currently, he is responsible for our crimes against persons in our criminal investigations division, which that's going to be our more serious crimes, our rapes, robberies, murders. And in fact, unfortunately, he's been woken up in the middle of the night 3 out of the last 5 nights. Of course, if you're following the news, we've had some pretty major incidents occurring, but this is the guy that responds and makes sure that we have a coordinated response so that we can tell the who, what, when, where, why, and how of what occurred in our community while most of us are at home sleeping. So a big part of his career also was working 10 years in our UNET office, which is our Unified Narcotics Enforcement Team. So he was working in an undercover capacity and addressing the drug underworld that does exist in our community. and really did a very effective job in managing that team as well. And of course, started 25 years ago as a patrol officer and worked his way through the ranks. But he's a very dedicated employee, always available, and as I said, responds very effectively at all hours of our clock. So thank you, Dale, for 25 great years.
Just one comment. Who would have thought an island boy from Hawaii would be here for 25 years? And I guess I defied all odds. But I work for the greatest department, I think, in the nation and one of the greatest cities around. So thank you.
And Captain Dan Root, if you could come forward. Captain Root is being recognized for 30 years with the Rapid City Police Department. That is 3 decades. Captain Root is currently responsible for our patrol division, and so he also is one of those that has 24/7 responsibility. And throughout his career, he's most known at our department as the grammar critic. He is a connoisseur of the English language, and if there is an error in a written report, because everything that we do we have to document in writing, he's one to make sure that our reports make us look very professional, because they do end up going lots of places from our department, to include through the criminal justice system and insurance companies, etc. So along with that, he also is fluent in Spanish, which has come in handy many times throughout his career. And he's just got a really cool, calm, courteous demeanor, and along with that, just a great degree of compassion when he's dealing with people. So we're very appreciative of his service and look forward to continued service from him. Thank you.
Oh, I want to say it's hard to believe that 30 years has gone by already. It's been a great ride. It's been a great career, and still plan on being here for a little while longer. But just seen a lot of changes. And when I first applied for the Rapid City Police Department, City Hall was over on Main Street next to the main fire station. So seen a lot of great changes here, a lot of progress. It's a great city, and it's a great state. I love living here. Thanks.
This rings, I believe.
Okay, now this brings us to the general public comment period. And I have 4 speaker request forms, but they're for a later portion in the agenda, so we don't have any general public comment at this time. That'll take us on to council items number 5, the Dark Skies Initiative, Diane Knutson.
Local resident and a 4-year local business owner. I'm here to propose that the City Council revisit the lighting ordinance in support of a dark sky initiative. I've got support with the Sustainability Committee, fellow City Council members, and many local residents. A brief overview on light pollution. There are 3 main causes. You have the residential, commercial, and street lights. There's a variety of street light fixtures. 2 represented here are in Rapid City, one at Founders Park that is a full cutoff on the left, directing the light down into where it should go. The second one is open, directing the light toward the sky, creating sky glow and wasted energy. There are many effects that sky glow has. In your binders, you will see a variety of aspects that the light pollution affects, one being wildlife. Sky glow can be seen from over 60 miles away of Rapid City. The quality of life is affected. Here is a picture with the sky glow that you can't see the stars, and then on the other side is one where the light is eliminated or directed down toward the ground where it is needed or wanted. And another one is energy that is a big factor with poor lighting, is the cost that is wasted with lighting that is directed up in the sky versus down where we want it to be. Safety is also a concern. When you have a lot of glare, you don't see what you need to see. If you can direct that down where it's needed, you're not only reduce the cost, but also create more safety. There's a good example of this next to the National Forest Office down on the south side of town, where whether you're traveling east or west, there's a lot of glare, and it creates more traffic hazard with that glare than it does to increase safety if they were to be pointed down where it's needed. Heritage is also another aspect. Vince Van Gogh was often inspired by the night skies. You can imagine if he didn't see the night skies, that he perhaps would not have painted this picture. There are many solutions that we can address with lighting. With the amount, you can reduce the amount of fixtures, you can reduce the time that the lights are on, and you can reduce the wattage. You can also address the shielding, which are those full cutoff fixtures. Having the light directed down reduces not only cost, but also eliminates the sky glow. You can also address the spectrum, where the lights are more amber red colored versus that bright blue color. That eliminates a lot of sky glow and cost as well. You can get a 90% reduction by addressing all of those aspects. That is also on the back of your binder. There are a lot of communities that are addressing dark skies. Tourism is a big part of it, where people are coming to our national parks to look at the skies. We have local observatories, one that is close to Sturgis Road, where development with a lot of lights are affecting their abilities to see the night sky. There are astrophotographers that are local that aren't able to do their work as efficiently because of the glow from the local developments. There's also in your binder a proposal for a model lighting ordinance, and also an example of one that Flagstaff has implemented for over 20 years. They have a similar population as we do, about 65,000 people, as a sample one that we can use and adapt to what we need for Rapid City. Thank you for your time and your sincere consideration.
Guess that puts me in the big seat. Okay, moving on to closing, any more public comment on items 1 through 6 through 32. I don't see any more speaker request forms. Anybody wish to speak on those items? Okay, we're going to close public comment on items 3 through 6 through 32 and hand the gavel back to the mayor.
So we're on to consent items. Anyone want to remove items 632 for separate consideration? Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 29, please.
Okay. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 22.
Okay, seeing no other lights, then need a motion for the remainder of the items. Got a motion from Charity Doyle and a second from Ron Weifenbach, I think. Good enough? Okay. All in favor of voting on the remainder of the consent items, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, those carry. Now on to item number 22.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 22 is to approve Councilman Richie Nordstrom's attendance at the 2015 National League of Cities Congress of Cities in Nashville, Tennessee, slated for November 4th through the 7th of 2015. And since Alderman Nordstrom pulled this off, I'll yield the floor.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. All I want to do is just abstain from this since I'm the benefactor. Thank you.
Okay. Brad Estes.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Estes, seconded by Lewis. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 29 is a request by Costello Porter Law Firm for BW Properties LLC for petition for annexation for property generally described as being located in the southeast quadrant of Catherine Boulevard and 5th Street. Now let's go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move approval. If I could entertain for. I just
Second
want to
by Lewis.
clarify that this item would be going forward as a general commercial item. If I could ask that question to Mr. Limbaugh, please.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's correct. When we annex property, we immediately have to put it into a no-use zoning district. However, we have an application that's going to our planning commission on Thursday to zone this property to general commercial.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Ron Weifenbach. Was there a second?
Second.
Chad Lewis. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us on to the non-consent items, items 33 through 40. We'll open public comment now, and we have a few speaker request forms. And I'll remind the speakers that they have a 3-minute time limit. And the first one will be on item 33, and it's Tonchi Weaver.
Good evening. Is this the one that's on? Yes, I am here this evening representing myself and South Dakota Citizens for Liberty. We tend to concern ourselves with things that we think upset the balance of power. And item number 33 changes the mayor's office coordinator and removes the confirmation process. And we believe that to be an important feature of that position. It's a powerful position. It's sort of the mayor's gatekeeper. And we would like to see the advice and consent of the council retained on that item. I spoke against this item on the at the Legal and Finance Committee, and I believe there was, it looked to me like a unanimous tabling of the item, so I was a little surprised to see it back on the agenda. Smokeouts are kind of frowned on in Pierre, but I guess they're popular here. Anyway, I would encourage you the council is no more and no less elected than the mayor. And I do believe that retaining that balance of the people's direct representatives in the choosing of staff, keeping this person loyal to the city, is very important. So I would ask you to consider that when you're voting on this item, and please vote that down. Thank you.
Thank you. And next on the same item, Kurt Pokart. Did I get that right?
Much better, thank you.
Thank you.
I was pleased last time when the former chief of police did not know how to pronounce my name. But in any case, I'm here also to speak against the proposed ordinance. What we're talking about is fixing a problem that doesn't exist. Right now, the council has a role in approving or disapproving the mayor's selection for this position. You all know that we have run into issues with this in the past. It's been a problem. There was a solution that was put in place some years not that long ago. It involved the council doing what it's normally supposed to do, the checks and balances, the advise and consent role that the council plays. I read in the paper last week following the Legal and Finance meeting that members spoke there to try to suggesting that it was proper to defer to the mayor's choice. Can you turn that light off, please? Thank you.
No, is that the last one? Time.
Yeah, I didn't think I was close.
You have time.
In any case, the opinion was expressed that the council should defer to the mayor and allow the mayor to select this person. If the council retains its present role, it still retains that option. It's part of the advise and consent function of government. And I don't think it's improper. I don't think it's a burden. I don't think it's inconvenient. I think it's a normal, logical process. And I would encourage you not to fix what is not broken. Leave it in place and allow the process to work. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to items 34 and 35. Bill May.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bill May from the Rapid City Chamber of Commerce. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of items 34 and 35 and to fully endorse those provisions on behalf of the Rapid City Chamber of Commerce. I think the key issue that is before the council tonight is whether or not a decision on items 34 and 35 will lead to better government. And I think that the answer to that question is a resounding yes. Under a 2-year system of terms, we believe that it is very difficult for a council person, an alderman, or a mayor to build the knowledge necessary to be as effective as they could be, to develop the relationships that are necessary to enact positive change, and then to be able to move forward with that change and to do so in an effective manner. We believe that the business community needs stability in terms of the local government. That does not mean that we don't hold elections. Of course we hold elections. Under the proposals, we would hold them at a longer length of time than presently, but we would still be electing officials. But what would be important is that there be a certain level of continuity in between the mayor's office and the alderman's. Under a 2-year system, that continuity and that stability just isn't present. So we would very much urge that you make a positive vote to extending these term lengths. It is a decision in our mind for a stronger local government and a better Rapid City. So we would please ask your favorable consideration of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're on to item 38. And this person's name is Alex Kalesia. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Alex Kalesia with Butler Machinery Company, Caterpillar dealer here in Rapid City. And I wanted to just address item 38. Threw me off guard a little bit with the comments made earlier here, but we'll continue on. But when the city throws or basically puts a bid out there, we try our hardest to meet the specifications, and in this instance, we did meet all of them. We did give you a very fair price, and as well as you got a good competitive price with the other dealer. And with that, I'm going to keep it short, but we'd like you to go ahead and approve that for purchase tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. We have one more speaker request on items 34 and 35. Jeff Karsrud.
Hi, folks. I'm Jeff Karsrud, owner of Rapid City Wind Supply. Just speaking on behalf of my company and most of the business owners that I come in contact with, definitely in support of lengthening our terms. Has nothing to do with term limits, and that's why this is confusing. Oftentimes, if you take an initiative like this and send it to the people, it's very confusing. Even us talking for it or against it often say term limits just by accident. So we just urge the leadership of the elected officials to make a decision and urge us to bring continuity to the process, which would mean longer term links for the council and the mayor. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. There are no more speaker request forms, so we'll close public comment, and that takes us on to item number 33, which is the second reading, Ordinance 6070, an ordinance reclassifying the Executive Assistant Program Coordinator within the Mayor's office, so the position is no longer an officer of the city, by repealing Section 2.12.070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And before we start with motions on this, I want to explain for a couple folks' benefit, and maybe there are others, explain how it got back here on the agenda. This first started when I proposed changing the job description of the mayor's executive assistant and program coordinator. And that change was made, and the council voted on the job description, and so that new job description of the executive coordinator exists today. Secondly was repealing the ordinance, which not only mandates council approval of this position, but it also mandates how this person will perform their duties, who they perform duties for. It specifies that they perform duties for the council as well as the mayor. So I proposed with a written letter to the council to change this. I gave them a two-part letter. The second part contained a new delineation of duties for what is very small, very minor reorganization of the mayor's office staff. Got virtually no feedback from the council at that time except for a couple of positive comments. And then it went on to Legal and Finance. Went to its first Legal and Finance meeting and was voted on unanimously in the affirmative. Then it went on to the first council meeting for the first reading of the ordinance. Went through the first council meeting with a unanimous vote by the council in the affirmative. Ordinances require 2 readings at city council meetings. So when it went back for the second Legal Finance Committee, there were a couple of speakers, and there were at least 4. The record says 5, but one of the voting members disputes that that he voted to table it, but there was a motion to table it. So the way this all happened with the first council meeting and the unanimous votes, I felt like the primary issue with this ordinance had become that everyone present, all 10 of the council members, had voted unanimously for it the first time. Half of the council members then, by tabling it, would deprive it from the city council for a second reading. I felt that that was unfair. I felt that, especially in the absence of feedback on the issue, and so I chose to use the smokeout procedure, which is a legitimate procedure for things exactly like this. It's not a matter of being a sore loser or wanting to have a power struggle with anybody. It's about giving the full council the benefit of that second reading instead of having it cut off from the council meeting by half of the group. So that's how it got back here on the agenda, and that's the whole story. So now I've read the ordinance into the record, so I will go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, second by Lewis.
May I retain the floor, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was not able to attend that Legal and Finance meeting when this occurred, and so the only time that I'm ever concerned with an item being tabled, especially with the story history on this item that the mayor just described, is that there was no reasons giving because there's no discussion on a tabling motion. So therefore, I was in support of the smokeout, and I still have not heard any reason not to affirm our original vote on this, and I will be voting yes, unless someone can give compelling reasons tonight why this should not go through. I believe this has had full support and has been totally vetted. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was on a Legal and Finance, and it was a unanimous vote. It was on the record as a unanimous vote. There's a procedure that can, if somebody wants to dispute their vote, they can go through the procedure, Mr. Mayor. So I don't appreciate that piece of information being put up here when we know, just like anything else, there's a procedure that you go through if you think the vote was wrong. It was taken. It was unanimous. That happened. But speaking on that, I've also been the victim of something getting tabled before, and I understand. And that's a lot of times why it goes through the process 2 times. If people want to table it, that's their choice to table it. When it smoked out, I agreed to bring it back because I'm okay with that. I think that to give someone a chance to explain why they want to do something, I'm okay with that. But it's just important to me that we all know that there's a procedure here. If somebody wants to dispute a vote at the time, they can dispute the vote at the time. To come back after you vote on someone and say, oh, that wasn't my vote, I just think that that's not fair. So I appreciate it.
Okay, seeing no further speaker, well, there's one. Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was one of the people who actually made the motion to table it. And as we have a lot of different items, the full impact of the changes in this position, one of them was to reduce the costs. Well, this particular ordinance is not needed. I believe the reduction in the pay for the position, or the reduction in the pay grades, already completed, from my understanding. So this is not needed, and I'm hoping that somebody's not going to use that as a sales point, much as extending the terms, the length of terms in office. But the fact of the matter is, the council in 2011 unanimously approved making this an officer position, not to pay it more money, but to make it transparent, to make it part of open government. And that is one of the things that I espouse. The reason we tabled it is because it was being removed from being an officer, so that the mayor would go back to the way it was before. And there were issues before. Whether you agree or not, the fact of the matter is, whether there are real or perceived biases in the process, and somebody's probably going to say something about competitive hiring process, but the fact of the matter is, the mayor will ultimately make that decision. There will not be somebody overriding the mayor or asking questions of the mayor. The mayor will be the one who will decide. If we go back to this old process, we'll decide like they did before. And the bad part about that is that it will bring criticism, whether it is real or perceived. And that is the biggest reason why we should not. Because if this new mayor, hires somebody from, say, his campaign staff, or a family member from a campaign, somebody who worked on his campaign, whether that was the best qualified person or not, there's going to be a perception here, and he or she, and this is for all mayors going forward, will be branded with that. And I don't think it's good government. I think it's very bad government, because it will create this bad taste in a lot of people's mouths who may have not voted for this mayor or any future mayor. So the important part is not what this mayor wants. It's what is best for our government. It's what It's where there's accountability. It's where there is an open process. It's where there are checks and balances, and why this city council is willing to give that up doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm hoping that my colleagues will see, not just for this mayor, but for all future mayors and for what this government should represent, which is an open process, which is a process that has checks and balances, which is a process that asks questions, and that's okay, and that it's above the board. There won't be. It'll eliminate this real or perceived situation, or this perceived, I should say. It'll eliminate the perception that a mayor or any future mayor would do something that appears to be not above the board. I yield.
Now we'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The previous incumbent that held this position before it was lowered, I really liked his work. I liked his style of work, but the mayor saw fit that he wanted to do something different, and I was willing to go along with it to explore that opportunity. And as the process moved forward, I did some more research on it, and the mayor had the options in front of him to what I call shelving this positions or shelving this position. It's been done in other city positions, so basically what they are is jobs that are just shelved. But the mayor chose to come up with this new position, so I credit him with having more open government in that respect. Whereas if we would have shelved this position, we would not known about it, and then at the same time he could have hired somebody in this new current position that's being debated here tonight. I think there's some other reasons that stand out for me too, is that as I looked through all the other job descriptions within the city that I could find right quickly, was that we do have a lot of program coordinators within the city currently. I think I counted something like 10 or 12 different program coordinators within the city that we have currently. And then the executive assistant part, for me, elevates this to above them, the other coordinators, meaning that there is an additional responsibility this position holds versus the other program coordinators. Therefore, the grade and position where it is placed at. The committee saw fit that this is where the Personnel Committee saw fit that this is where that position needs to be placed on the pay matrix. That all of that I can support, and then the other portion of it is the executive assistant. To me, is more closely associated with or very similar to the other positions that we have already within the city that we do not vet. It is up to the department heads to go through that process of vetting those positions, and I know them as administrative secretaries. There's some other names that are put with that, but essentially that's what they are. We do not vet, or the council is not involved with those positions, either coordinators or the administrative assistants. For those reasons, that's the reason why I'm supporting the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Now we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree wholly with everything that Steve Lorente said, so I won't go over any of that. And I got a little lost with Richie, but I did understand some of it. And as far as executive secretaries for department heads, we don't ever have to worry about a department head hiring his campaign manager, because our department heads aren't elected officials. So I just want to clear that up. But I do have a question for Jeff Barbier. Jeff, in the competitive hiring process, basically all you have to do is meet minimum criteria for the job that's out there, and then anybody in that pool can be hired depending on who the mayor chooses, correct, in this position?
Right, basically. We had 109 people apply for this job. It closed last week. 63 of them passed the minimum qualifications, so they were forwarded on by HR. There were planned to be 12 in-person interviews. 2 of those people withdrew from the process, so now there are planned to be 10 in-person interviews. So that's where this stands right now.
And who chooses who's interviewed?
I'm not sure what the process was. I assume, I know for the interviews, there's a panel of people. The mayor is one of several that are on the panel for the interviews.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to see how that process worked. It was pretty close to what I thought it was. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, now on to Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things I said. The Legal and Finance Committee that I was at, that wasn't the tabling finance one. I had a sick child that day, so couldn't make it, unfortunately. But, we talk about this position like it's the deputy mayor, and it's really not. It's basically a, administrative assistant job. Yeah, I guess you could say they probably control some of the access to the mayor, but not really, not in this day and age, especially with Facebook and Twitter and every other way out there to communicate openly with people. I just don't see the fear. And if we go back to the history of this, now we've had exactly 4 people in this job in the last 50 years or something like that, of which one was there for 43 years. I did this last time, I'll do it again. Kay Ribbentrop started in '68, which was the Johnson administration. She made it through Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan twice, H.W. Bush, Clinton twice, and George W. Bush twice. And then she decided to retire. So I don't know if there was really much of a political thing going on there. I think there was someone who did their job, did it right, and they kept the job. The Mayor Hanks decided to hire someone that had been associated with this campaign loosely, but she was obviously very qualified and did a good job. And as soon as Mayor Quaker came, she was gone. So, I guess you can say whatever you want, but I think it was obviously a job that's, if I was in that position, I'd want someone I know, someone I trust, and I'd want the ability to pick that position. I don't think that's, we entrust them with all kinds of things that are way bigger, way more important to the city, and your safety is one of them. And I think the idea that they're somehow required to go through all these hoops just to hire a secretary essentially is just kind of silly. I think that that's something you do. It's not it's not the keys to the city in that position, folks. It's dealing with a lot of junk and a lot of people that are angry, a lot of people calling. I wouldn't do it for $1 million a year, to be honest with you. I admire the people that have done it. They've done a great job by all my interactions with them, but there's no way you could pay me enough to do that job. So to say that, we're not making it open or it's not open government or anything else, I just don't buy that. I'm sorry. I think that we've done a good job in the history. Just look in the history. Kay Ribbentrop, 43 years. That's all I got to say.
Okay, back to Steve Laurenti, 1 minute and... Sorry. I got jumped there by everybody. Darla Drew, welcome to the...
I know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo the words of Alderman Lewis. This is not a position that will keep me up at night to worry about the assistant to the mayor. Although it could have some kind of political ramifications, that I don't really believe that they're such that we should have to approve his choice. The people already approved the mayor as their choice, so I will be backing his directive to try and just hire somebody that he wants in the job, and that we don't have to approve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Steve Laurenti, who has 1 minute and 40 seconds left.
Minute 40. I just wanted to reiterate that I'm not against mayors having some say. What I'm saying here is that it's a better position for it to be above the board so that we don't have a perceived bias, which is better government, one where there can be a perception that an elected official did a favor for somebody, whether they did or not. What's a better situation? That we can do away with the perception and have an advice and consent process, or going back to an old way where we know there were perceptions? That's the question. And I think it's the wrong move. It's taking us back to not smoke-filled back rooms, but let's see, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to have the votes for open government, But the fact of the matter is, we'll see who this mayor hires. I don't want to say I told you so, but we'll see. I yield the floor.
Okay, thank you. And just so you know, this is not a vote about open government. It's about repealing an ordinance. And we'll go now to Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for Jeff. Under appointed position, the termination is based on what? And under competitive hire, termination is based on what?
Well, termination obviously is based on a number of variables in any situation.
I mean, appointed official, city rep, who can terminate him and under what grounds?
Well, when you're talking about appointed positions,
officer of the city.
Well, basically we all serve that are in that position, like ourselves. We serve at the pleasure of the mayor, and state law protects his ability to fire us at any time.
Thank you. Now, if you're in a competitive hire employee, what are the grounds for termination?
Well, again, in the state of South Dakota, we could, in most cases, we can terminate people without cause. However, a big percentage of the city's employees have some protections under union contracts, as well as that we try to be absolutely fair. I mean, we try to, the threshold to get terminated from a city job is, you know, we would have to have good cause to do so in most cases, just as a matter of policy.
So to clarify the issue before us is the person that's appointed at the will of the mayor, fine. Competitive hire would normally be for cause or for termination, correct? So it's not, it's more stable that way, correct? Thank you.
Right.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you wondering, open government, if you go to the city's website, the HR page, you can find every city employee. You can find what they earn. You can find what role, what job they're fulfilling with the city. It's all online. It's all out there. And I'm trying to carry this logic out a little bit. If we are going to go the route of appointing administrative assistants, then by rights, I think we should be appointing and parading through every city employee. I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, at this point, we have the mayor and the department directors. Obviously, elected officials are vetted in that manner. But at what level do you draw the line? So I think what's coming in the pipeline is good. I think that we swung the pendulum a little bit the other way. What it was sold as was the mayor and council's administrative assistant or executive coordinator. However, when that gentleman was hired, he became the mayor's executive coordinator. And so it was kind of a little, I guess, bad on us for not knowing what was going to happen after he got hired and appointed. It sounded like a good idea at the time. But that's the way it is. And again, everybody's online if you want to take a look. Thank you.
Okay, and we have one more. John Roberts, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I think that this is an issue of open government, but I guess that depends on your perspective of open government. So I just have another question for Jeff Barbier. So you're saying actually taking them out of being a officer of the city, they have more protection under...
So well, I would say as a matter of policy, yes, that is probably true. I mean, we tend to not terminate city employees unless there's good cause to do so.
Unless they're a officer of the city.
Well, I would think a mayor, in order to terminate an officer of the city, would probably want to have cause as well. In fact, the department directors have some protections in terms of severance if you're fired without cause.
And did the former employee that had this old position, did he get severance pay when he was terminated?
No, he did not have a contract that paid severance.
Okay, so he was the only officer of the city that didn't have severance, that wasn't covered under that, or was it because he wasn't there long enough?
No, he did not have a contract that provided severance. And then we have some employees that are not department directors that were grandfathered in because under an old policy that provided severance, they were covered by that. Because they already worked here.
I remember that now that you clarify it. I guess my question was, what was the reason that our former executive was fired. I never did hear, nobody ever did tell me why he was fired other than
I don't-
realigning the position.
Alderman Roberts, yeah, basically it was just realigning the position, but I don't feel comfortable talking about why somebody was let go in an open meeting.
Oh, okay. I thought because you were HR, you might have some reason since I didn't know. Thank you.
Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't, I guess I wasn't paying attention to what the council did back in 2011. And, when I look at this and I look at the guy to my right and he went out and ran for mayor, and anybody else has ran for mayor, I figure they get an assistant, or a secretary or whatever. And I guess that's how I viewed this position, and he's gone out and told the public that there's a job to do and he can do it, and I assume that he needs to have somebody, a gatekeeper if you call it, that he has a high level of trust in, and the ultimate decision as to whether or not it meets transparency and everything is going to be in the voters. They're going to decide how he handled it, and if he's willing, if that's the way he wants to handle it, I'm not going to stand in his way. I was going to be, I don't want to be cavalier. I was going to say, I don't care if he hires his brother. I mean, that's it. That's his deal. He's got to stand by the decision. But if whoever he hires, they got to get the work done to the people, and if they get it done, then the voters will respond, and if they don't, or they don't like the way it was handled, they'll respond as they see fit. So I'm going to support it. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no further speaker requests, we'll go directly to a roll call vote. Charlene? Motion is to approve.
Drew? Roberts? No. Nordstrom? Aye. Scott? Aye. Lorente? No. Wright? Aye. Weifenbach? Aye. Doyle? Aye. Estes? Aye. Lewis? Aye. Motion carries 8-2.
Okay, now on to items 34 and 35. Amanda Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 34 is the first reading of ordinance number 6078, an ordinance increasing the mayor's term of office by amending section 2.12.020 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. I make a motion to approve.
Second by Brad Estes.
I yield the floor.
Seeing no requests to speak, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Roll call, please.
Roberts? No. Nordstrom? Aye. Scott? Aye. Lorente? No. Wright? Aye. Weifenbach? No. Doyle? Aye. Estes? Aye. Lewis? Aye. Drew? Aye. 7-3 carries.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 35 is the first reading of ordinance number 6079, an ordinance to establish the qualifications and term of office for aldermen by adding section 2.08.005 to the Rapid City Municipal Code. I make a motion to approve.
Second by Brad Estes. I have one button here. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll speak on this one. I didn't speak on the other one because it was insignificant what I had to say. I've been on the fence on this, but I have no reason to support it, a change. I've asked several people to give me some good reasons to why. First of all, I would like to identify why we need to change it. So nobody's done that yet into what I feel is my comfort level that would suggest why it would make sense to change it. I ran 2 elections before I got elected. My 3rd election, I ran against 5 people, got elected. I ran for mayor, didn't get elected. Came back and ran against a gentleman who had a 2-year term. And the reason I came back was because of that person in this position. I felt I could do a better job. After a 2-year period of time, there was a recall that had taken place to remove that person. There's people on this council that are sitting here that have ran against people who've been on the council for 2 years. And yet they can't answer me why they think it should be 3 or 4. So that is why I can't support it. There's been no real significant reason. If there's something that's not working, I'd like to know what it was. If it kind of reminds me of a joke that someone told me about how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is 2, but the light bulb's really got to want to change. So my point to my council members, and the ones that I've dealt with in the past, and the ones I dealt with today, and the ones I may see in the future, if you want to be a good councilman, it's up to you. Look in the mirror, work hard, do your job, listen to your constituents, and know what you're getting into. I got into this knowing that it would cost me a lot of financial capital. I knew it would cost me a lot of criticism. There was a lot of things that came along with the job. Extending them 2 years. I think it brought up here earlier about the voters have the ultimate decision. Yep, they do, and they will. And they also had the ultimate decision, the other thing that we talked about earlier. I said, so giving them that chance to have the ultimate decision every 2 years has worked as far as I could tell. If it hasn't worked, nobody's pointed out to me in what perspective it hasn't worked. If you go back in the numbers, there's not been one mayor that's, I think there's about 3 of them since the inception of Rapid City. I think there's been 3 mayors that have served less than 4 years. And that I can recall, there's 2 councilpersons that served less than 1 term of 2 years. And that's because some of the people up here didn't want him here, and some of the people in his ward didn't want him there. They got him out in 2 years. So, vote how you may. I just wanted to speak on this, and it's just basically might as well beat my head against that wall over there, but I thought I'd say it anyway.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to kind of reiterate what Ron has said, but from my perspective, I ran 2 elections too before I finally won. I won against a 14-year incumbent. Yeah, I can think of 2 council people in my memory that have served only 1 term. I can think of many, many council people that have not had elections on their 2nd term. I've had 3 very hard-fought elections and just won my 3rd term. But if I was doing this for just my family, my wife hates the criticism that I get. She hates these elections and all the negative things that are said. I do this because it's what's in my heart to do for Rapid City, because somebody has to do it. And we don't have people standing in line to do it. I ran 1 election, actually I ran 2 elections out of the 6 elections that I've ran that have had more than 2 candidates. And the 2 that I ran had 3 candidates. So in my ward, you don't get, or at least I haven't seen it since 2009, you don't get more than 3 people typically running for election. I think that as long as you work hard, you do a good job, you're gonna get reelected. Yeah, it's work. But everything in life that's worth anything is work. So if it's something that you truly want to do, you're going to do it. And 2 years is a wonderful length of term, I think. And from the perspective of me running 2 to 3 to 6 times more elections than everyone on this panel, it hasn't been that difficult as long as it's something that you have in your heart to do. So anyway, I want to thank. I hope that if this does go across this board and if this council does vote for this, I hope that the citizens bring it forward and can be able to vote on it, because what I'm hearing from a lot of people is they're mixed. Some want it, some don't want it, but the majority of the people would like to be able to vote on it. So I'm hoping the Chamber of Commerce, since they're so vested in this and they want to have this so much that maybe you'll step forward and help whoever comes forward with an initiative measure, because I've talked to a couple of groups that are pretty serious about it, I think. So anyway, thank you.
John, just out of curiosity, a 14-year?
Yeah, 14.
Who was that?
Ron Kroger.
Oh, okay. Thanks. How about Chad Lewis?
Anyway, I guess, this is one of those situations I could probably vote either way. I definitely see both sides. And I was definitely not going to vote for it just because, I'm up on the election cycle next time around. But I've talked to quite a few people about it. It does make sense. The argument's been put forth that, this isn't about me. This isn't about my own selfish needs or thoughts or anything else. It's about what's best for the city in the long run. Obviously, I know this will disappoint a lot of people, but I'm not going to be here forever. And so, the next person that sits in my seat, I would like them to have the year or so to just kind of get to know what's going on, because it takes a while to figure your way around here. I mean, it's not like you just walk up here. I mean, some of us do start babbling instantly, but to really know what you're talking about, know who to talk to, know how to, get the pulse of the city and everything else takes some time. And it just takes time to learn this job. It's a really, it's a lot to do. I mean, it's a lot more than it looks like sometimes even. I think it's a pretty big deal. And I just think that having an extra year on there would maybe make it a little easier to respond and have a little security when you're up here, knowing that you have a right to make a few mistakes and you have a right to learn. And sure, you're still going to be responsible to your constituents. I mean, you get blasted for everything you do up here. Trust me. If someone doesn't like what happened or what you voted, they're going to let you know, and they can still vote you out. Just have to wait an extra year. But and as far as the mayor goes, I think it's a no-brainer. I think we've got to have someone in there that's got a little more stability, a little less worried about political things, and just worried about doing the business of the city. Regardless if you like the person or not, you got to give them a chance to do that, and or her, excuse me. So is that a declaration? But anyway, I just think, for the long run, I was definitely could see both sides of it. But I just think for the general, what's good of the city of Rapid City, not for Chad Lewis. This isn't about me. This isn't about Darla Drew, John Roberts, anybody up here. It's about what's best in the long run for the city. I think a little stability, a little continuity, a little, just there's a lot of, institutional knowledge that goes on here, and it's good to have that in the long run. And I think it'll be the best thing that happens to our city in a lot of ways, and I think hopefully it'll work. So anyway, that's what I'm coming from it. I think both sides have valid arguments, and I have no real heartache with the other side either. If this fails, I'd be fine with it too. But I just think for what's best for our city, I think it's fine. So thank you.
Now on to Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too was on the fence about this issue. I didn't know, this is my first term. I ran once and I won. Anyway, so just saying. So I took this issue to Facebook and I asked people what they thought, because I really didn't know what to expect. I had 14 resounding yeses in favor of 3-year terms on the count of stability and continuity of government. People wanted to see that happen, and I was really surprised that there were no, this is unnecessary, or please don't do this, and I got one phone call, once again, encouraging me to vote for the 3-year terms. Some people did talk about term limits, but I don't want to raise that issue now. I think that's something okay, I just did. But the thing is, I'm going to vote for this because of the people that contacted me. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for approval. All those, Renti.
Thank you, Mayor, for stopping that vote. I appreciate that.
Think for you.
Hate not to use my 5 minutes, or 3, 2.5. I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that I've said before about this particular issue, but and address some of the things that have been said tonight. I mean, I can remember when I first came on the council, this was attempted as well, and I spoke then and opposed it then on some principles that I'm going to speak about real quick. But some of the things that have been said tonight about continuity were said before. Our state house has 2-year terms. Our national House of Representatives has 2-year terms. How they have been able to do it without continuity is, I don't know, surprising. But the fact of the matter is the 2-year limits is something that's a reflection of the citizens of Rapid City. It's not really about elected officials and what we think is best for our government. It's what the people think. And I had hoped that a group or certain groups that saw this was going to be very advantageous for them or thought it was a good idea for our city would bring it to the ballot rather than run it through the council. And I imagine that maybe there's some fear that it would not win if it were brought on the ballot. And that's the only reason I can think of why they wouldn't do it, because there's been plenty of time. This has been being debated since I first came on the council about 5 years ago. Continuity is more to do with the staff. That's the continuity of city government. It's these full-time people who work here every day, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. That's where the continuity is. Elected officials are the voice of the people who get interjected into the process, and we rely heavily on the people who are the actual continuity of city government, which is all of these expert professionals that have been hired and that have been here for many, many years, some of them. That's where the continuity of government is. The elected officials of government are the voice of the people. So when you take some of that voice, which is what we're doing here, there is no argument. I have brought it up, and nobody has refuted. Nobody has come to me and talked to me, sent me an email and said, this is why it's not a taking of the power of the people. I haven't heard that, not one peep. So nobody has been able to refute that. But the fact of the matter is, if we have a mayor or a council person who's been elected, and they're here for a year and a half or 2 years, and they're doing maybe just the opposite of what they ran their campaign on, or they didn't say during their campaign they were going to do certain things, and the people don't like it, these longer terms are going to take some of that voice, because the voters will have to wait longer to remove that person. And if that person continues to defy the voice of the people that elected him, then they're being robbed of their voice. That's purely what this does. Whether we're afraid of an election or not, I'm not saying anybody up here is. Some of us have run multiple elections. But the fact of the matter is, it's the voice of the people. That's what elections are. Cost, I'm glad nobody focused on cost, but that's been said before. But unfortunately, I think what we're going to see here, ladies and gentlemen, is the same people who voted to increase costs on the taxpayers just at the last council meeting by $250,000 in perpetuity every year are going to be the same people, are going to be the same people,
That's enough.
are going to be the same people who will vote for this. So if you want to talk about cost, this is...
You are out of order. Go on to Chad Lewis. Oh, Jerry Wright.
When we talk about our law and Constitution, I love to talk about both sides, and I recognize that the House, U.S. House is 2 years, and our State House is 2 years, but let us remind us that the Senate is 6 years in the U.S., and I believe the state is 6 years, to provide some accountability and stability to our government. And that's really what we're trying to do. So our forefathers looked at both sides, and they were for stability. And our state law allows us as a council to set these terms, and I believe we're the only city in the state of South Dakota that is 2 years. So I think it's appropriate that we shift up, and it will bring stability to us, and it's certainly not in any violation in any way of our Constitution or the guidance of our forefathers, and well within line of anywhere from 2 to 6 years. So we're okay. I'm just going to support it. Thank you.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. So according to this ordinance extending the term limits for aldermen for the city of Rapid City, I just simply, term lengths for the aldermen of the city of Rapid City for all 5 wards, 2 representatives for each ward. I just simply want to say it is not a taking of the power of the people. I yield the floor.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
What's your point of order?
My point of order is I think Mr. Laurenti and the council deserves to know why he was out of line and Alderman Scott was not.
He was off topic. He was speaking to the character of the remaining council members, which is not allowed. Is that what you want? You want to add anything else? Or?
No, I just wanted to.
Did I answer it okay?
Yep.
Okay.
You're the chair.
Going back to John Roberts with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Joel Landine. Joel, do you believe Mr. Laurenti was out of order there? Could I have you possibly give me a ruling on that and let me know within the next week? I'm just curious because I guess I didn't realize if we were stating facts that were on the record, that would be out of order.
I would just say I'm not the chair of the meeting, so it's really not relevant what my opinion of it is. It's for the chair of the meeting to run the meeting and make rulings. I'd suggest if you have a concern with it, that you direct it to the mayor.
Well, I think the mayor is going to have his opinion and I'm going to have mine, so I don't think I'm probably going to get, and that, we all have a difference of opinion, just like, you know, saying that this isn't taking away power from the people. Certain people believe it is, certain people don't believe it is. And I think that that's just a matter of perspective. That's a matter of the people that you associate with. That's a matter of what your political background is, your political beliefs, you know, it's a matter of perspective. So I have seen a lot of things said on this council over the last 4 years. I saw an ex-mayor sit in that seat and get bashed over and over and over again by ex-council members. And I guess that I didn't feel that it was that inappropriate, so that's just my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your opinion, and you can find all you need to learn about point of order in Robert's Rules of Order, and I'm not going to take the example of former mayors in conducting this meeting. I've been counseled fairly clearly by many of the members of this board that we need your rules enforced. They're the rules you made, and I think they need to be updated, and we could go in and do that sometime, but we have an item here on the floor. Who on here hasn't spoken yet? Chad Lewis. 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I was going to say something somewhat witty, but I guess it doesn't work anymore. You know, comparing us to Congress isn't necessarily something I want to be compared to, but the fact of the matter is, you know, I don't think the 2 years works very well for Congress either, but we're a representative government. We're not a true democracy. That thing doesn't exist anymore. I think maybe ancient Greece is the last time you saw that, where everybody got a vote. You represent us to make a vote. If you don't like the way we vote, then you vote us out. And so we have to make decisions, and you know, a lot of times we don't make decisions because we're too afraid to. We're afraid we're going to make someone mad. We might lose this job. Well, that's where you take tough votes and you swallow it and go on, and voters will decide if they want you or not to do that again. So that's the whole point of a representative democracy, and that's what we are. There isn't, you know, I don't remember who said it, but it's the best form of government we got at this point. So, yeah. And as far as the point of order, I do believe it's just speaking to the motion itself, whether or not to approve longer limits. It wasn't about other people being wrong or right. I don't feel like we need to attack each other up here. We got enough issues up here. So, thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Call the question.
Question's been called. Is there any objection to calling the question? Okay, now what do we do? Okay, no objection. Then we're going to go to a vote on the motion on the floor is to approve item 35. All those in favor? Well, let's go to a roll call. Charlene.
Nordstrom. Yes, motion is to approve. Scott. Lorente. Wright. Weifenbach. Doyle. Estes. Lewis. Drew. Roberts. 7-3, motion carries.
Okay, we're on to item number 36 under the Public Works Committee items, and we'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 36 is to authorize Mayor and Finance Officer to sign an agreement between the City of Rapid City and Black and Beach Corporation for master planning professional services for the water utility system master plan update and model recalibration in the amount of $1,365,586. Make a motion to approve.
Second by Steve Laurenti. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 37, we'll go back to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 37 is to approve the update to Mid-Continent Communications to increase bandwidth for the fire stations. This was continued from the September 8th council meeting. I'll make a motion to approve, but I'd like to retain the floor.
Motion to approve and second by Mr. Laurenti, and go ahead.
Thank you. May I ask Chief Multiverne a question, please?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Chief, I had asked that this be continued so that we can get some better information. There is better information, thanks to Jim from IT and then also yourself for putting this on here. But my original questions still stand because I'm assuming that you're not asking for an increase in broadband width like I would so that I could play World of Warcraft longer and faster on my computer. So I'm assuming your firemen are not doing that. So what actual services does the greater bandwidth provide for the fire station's connectivity?
Thank you. You're absolutely correct. A couple of things we've done internally to improve communications is using technology to basically through a number of web-based services improve connectivity between those stations in the outlying areas and the station downtown. So we do that through a meeting format, so we can go online and stations can log in. There's a camera, webcam. They can communicate with the instructor or who's running the meeting downtown. Keeps those crews in their areas so they're able to respond to emergencies more efficiently and effectively. Second thing is to, and then also training. We use some web-based training forums that allow us to log into a software package that we've purchased. Again, it's all web-based and it allows the videos to stream quicker and with better quality. So, in terms of, I think the question was, what will the amount increase per year? And broke it down by station. It's going to go up about $85 per facility. There's 4 of those, and then Station 6 seems to be our most troublesome station. It's going to go up a little more than that. So, about a $590 a month increase for the service in terms of our budget, and we feel we can absorb that through our normal operational approved budget.
So there won't be a supplemental appropriation. This will already be absorbed by your budget currently.
That is correct. We will absorb it. No supplement.
Thank you, Chief. And then I'll also just want to clarify, because you said per year, but the figure that you gave of roughly $600 is per
I'm sorry.
month.
Correct. Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Okay, item number 37, there's a motion to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to item 38, bid awards. Item number 38 is to award of base bid without trade-in, 1 new current model year articulated loader, large, open September 1st, 2015, to the lowest responsible bidder, Butler Machinery, in the amount of $376,300. Jerry Wright, was that you? Motion to approve?
I'll second for discussion.
Second for Brad Estes for discussion, and we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Since there was a lot of discussion and controversy over this, I'd like to offer a second motion or a substitute motion on the floor to reject and send back out for bid.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second by Roberts to reject. Now we'll go to Jerry Wright.
Questions for Finance and Public Works. The Caterpillar Butler dealer bid was the lowest responsible bid without exception. Is that correct?
That is correct.
They took no exceptions. And by state law, we are authorized to and should award a contract to the lowest responsible bidder that has taken no exceptions. Is that correct? Finance, can you answer that?
Can I say typically yes, but there's a different issue completely with this one?
Would you explain that then, please?
What was authorized to go out for bid was a medium-sized loader up to 280,000 estimate, if I'm looking at the correct one. What was actually bid out was a large front-end loader for 380,000. They are substantially two different pieces of equipment, so the council did not authorize Public Works to go out for this type of specific equipment. So we need to reject the bids and actually either go back and get authorization to advertise for the correct piece of equipment or bid out what the request originally was for.
So in other words, the permission advertised did not authenticate or authorize the purchase of this size of machine or expenditure. It was for a smaller one?
Correct.
Then I support the motion before us to reject. Thank you. We have no choice. Thank you.
Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just really sick to my stomach about this because in July 6th, when Carl came before us to, it was a new deal, and he wanted to buy 3 pieces of equipment on the national bid, and this council decided to put it out to bid. I was the only one that spoke in favor of the national bid, and voted no on that. And this piece of equipment on that national bid could have been bought for about $2,000 less than Butler's low bid now. And then, we authorized them to put out for bid, and there is a technicality. The paperwork, when we approve the bid, is wrong. But I tell you, my history of growing up in the construction business and my livelihood was based upon sealed bids. I'm really frustrated with the way this was written because in one line it says that the bidder shall submit a synopsis of non-compliant issues with their respective bid. And then right below it, it says a contract will be awarded to the bidder submitting the lowest responsible bid meeting the exact requirements of the spec. To me, when you put out specifications and you advertise for a bid, you ask for any discrepancies to be approved before the bid letting. You don't ask, in my mind, you don't ask people to bid something and slip a piece of paper in there and say, tell us your price and tell us where you don't meet, because now you have us up here arguing about what is and what isn't a critical spec. That would be like a school bidding a new school, hire an architect, design a new school, and you get the bids, and some contractor slips it there and says, everywhere that I'm $2 million less, and everywhere it shows 8-inch block, I'm going to put 6-inch block in because Billy Bob down at the restaurant says we do it all the time. Or how about the Horseman School? If somebody slips in a piece of paper and says, I'll do that for $150,000 less, I'll just make the pool 10 foot shorter. You just can't do that. Butler's been just, well, whatever. I think we have to put it out for other bids, but this is just wrong to put us in a position after the fact, and you see prices. That's not fair for the sealed bid, the integrity of a sealed bid process, to do that to people, to be able to look at the prices and pick and choose what is and what isn't critical. I yield.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Estes. I totally agree with everything you just said. I have a question for Joel Landine. Joel, did you do any checking on this to see if there was any instances of where we may or may not have broken state law on this bid?
I looked at bid law generally, and I think the concern was over the comment, and I think Mr. Woltersdorf has some clarification on that. But obviously, you can't, when you're going out for competitive bids, spec a specific vehicle. Now, you can look at a specific vehicle and use that criteria and say, this is kind of what we're looking for. And it's called an or equal. It does not appear, that this was spec'd out to a specific vehicle in these bids. We had multiple bids. There were actually one, I'm thinking of the camera, and that's probably on the next one, where they waived the factory installed was the only exception versus the factory installed and saved $20,000. So I think they were looking for competitive bids. The criteria, and again, the problem is that when you're talking about bidding, it's going to always be somewhat subjective on who's writing the specs and what it says. And what state law says is any specification shall seek to promote overall economy for the purposes intended and encourage competition in satisfying the purchasing agency's needs and may not be unduly restrictive. Well, we could probably look at a spec and argue, depending on the spec, both sides of that somebody could say it's unduly restrictive and somebody else would say, no, that's something that's necessary. I tend to agree somewhat with what Alderman Estes is saying, in that there are some problems clearly with some of the specs. If you don't need a factory installed, it just complicates it to even put that in there. But I doubt the person writing the spec even considered that. There's other things. We shouldn't be really in a situation where we're giving exceptions on machinery and trying to decide what's an important spec and what isn't. And I think what we've discussed is we need to go back and have a training for all the people that write bid specs again in the city and try to clean up our specs. If you look at them, they're long, and as been pointed out, the operators are the ones that have a lot of input. They obviously have an interest in certain things, how it operates, and if it's easier to operate, and that may bleed into it. But if you had a fleet manager, they're going to have their own considerations, like how much it costs to operate, how much it breaks down. So anybody writing a spec, no matter who you have write the specs, there's probably going to always be some level of subjectiveness to it. But they should be written in a manner that they're competitive and that we get as many submittals as we can. I don't know that state bid law was broken, but there's certainly problems with the bids. Nobody could argue looking at these that there hasn't been problems. We shouldn't have situations where we give exceptions, but I'll say I'm aware that it apparently is a pretty common occurrence. So.
Thank you, Joel. And can you tell me if you went and looked at SDCL 5-18A-8, which is the South Dakota sole sourcing law for bid process?
Yes. So, this isn't a sole source. They didn't say when we do a sole source, we come to you and say, we're not going to bid this out. We're going to award the contract to this company because they're the only ones that can provide it.
Yes, but if you write it so tight that only one person can qualify, I think that there is a pretty good chance that it did fall under that state law.
It wouldn't fall under it. It just wouldn't be in compliance with the other section I cited about writing the specs so that they're competitive. It's not like they were trying to use the sole source. I guess an example would be if they had come to you and instead of writing bid specs where if you argued, okay, these bid specs, and you look at them, they're only applicable to one piece of machinery. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That isn't a sole source, where if they had abused the sole source would have been if they came to you and said, whatever machine is listed as the lowest bidder, this is the only machine that will meet our needs. So we're not going to bid it out at all. We're just going to award it or we're just going to buy this piece of equipment. That would have been a sole source purchase. But in a way, they can do that legally, because if there's a piece of equipment that's been bid out, like the piece of equipment on the national contract, it's perfectly legal for them to pick out a piece of equipment that's previously been bid out and buy it. So you wouldn't even have to sole source it. You would just have to, you've got 50 states in the federal government. You just try to find the piece of equipment you're looking for, and somebody somewhere it's probably been low bid somewhere. And then you go to the local dealership and you say, this is a competitive contract awarded somewhere else. Will you match this price? And if they match that price, then that's what you purchase it for.
And I think that there's just a few of us that are concerned here that we're out there shopping for specific pieces of equipment when we have equipment that's very close to that same piece of equipment that we may be able to get cheaper for the taxpayers' dollars. So, anyway, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if I may ask Alderman Estes a question about, I didn't quite understand the point you were getting to, Alderman Estes, when you said that the criteria was built and they bid it and then left the sentence in there that said they could reject certain criteria after the bid came in. Is that how that went, Mr. Mayor?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, please.
What I have here, Alderman Weifenbach, and you might have a copy of this, is that this is the actual specifications that was sent out by the city. Okay? And you know, in any building, I mean, it's kind of boilerplate stuff, but right here, it says bidders shall submit a synopsis of non-compliant issues with their respective bid. But then in the same deal, we go right down here and we say we're going to award it to whoever meets the exact requirements. I mean, it conflicts. And as all I'm saying is, and I understand what Mr. Roberts is all I'm saying is that you set that bid date out in sufficient time so that if somebody has something that doesn't quite meet the full specs and you want to have your piece of equipment approved, you get prior approval. It's approved before you know what the numbers are. You know, because
that makes sense, Alderman Estes, and I thought that's how we did it. I believe the city engineering, the city streets department does it that way. They'll go ahead, if they want to get a competitive bid, they'll understand what those non-compliant issues are. Because if we had 3 great dealers with 3 great bids, but only one of them meets them exactly. And I think that's where the issue came in. Whether it was legal or illegal or whatever, I think the council directed the staff to put this out for bid. We thought, or we assumed, that that's exactly what would happen. So I agree with what everyone has said up here. So, except for the fact that I think the bottom line is that I think that the city is going to put together some sort of training program that goes over this, so we don't put everybody on the spot. You know, like Alderman Estes said, now everybody's seen the cards, and did we do it correctly, or were we fair or not? So, but I think when Alderman Scott had originally caught this, I thought when she said that, and we agreed that it would go to bid, that was the direction the council gave. I think at that point that's what rules. We overruled the fact of going out just buying it off the charter, and we said we wanted a bid. So we believed that we were going to get a bid that was instructive of, allowing for competitiveness and the non-compliance issues to be hammered out prior to that, and I think that is something we need to work on. So I'm in favor of throwing these out, starting over, and to my apologies to the people that were involved, and hopefully we'll get it right next time. Thank you.
We have a did you? Brad Estes.
Thank you. And again, I want to tell you, I was the one that made the motion to award this to Butler at Public Works because they were, in my mind, the lowest responsible bid that met the exact specs. They were within $300, and to me, $300 was worth that. The problem is that as I got a email from a guy in 6 different fonts and 4 different colors, and so I spent a little bit of weekend researching, and I found that on July 20th, as we approved this to go out for bid, technically, we approved 2 medium-sized pieces of equipment for $280,000, not one large piece for $380,000, and I just wasn't going to not say it because I don't want to buy this and have the state. I didn't know how technical of a problem that would be, and I didn't want to buy something and have the state come back and say, technically, we shouldn't have bought that first piece of equipment from Sheehan. I mean, it fell into the same deal, but it was on the consent calendar and it didn't get pulled off. But we got the same issue there. we had access to prices and we had access to the differences, and, you know, all that should have been approved ahead of time. So I guess I'll yield. I think you all know kind of where I'm sitting. Thanks.
Okay, we're on the substitute motion to reject this bid and send it back to the next Public Works. Is that correct? Or was there a?
I believe my motion was to reject and rebid.
Okay, the
Reject
motion
all
then is
bids
to
and
reject
rebid.
and rebid. All in favor?
And for clarification, Mayor, rebid what the council approved is what my motion is.
Understood.
But that's not what, well, all I would say is that's not, they need a large piece of equipment. It was just sent to you wrong. So I think we're going to I would imagine they're going to bring back in authorization to bid out a large piece of equipment at $380,000 because that's what they actually need. It was just sent to you mistakenly before.
Okay, then Mayor, I will, if I can, friendly amend my own motion. I'll reject this bid and send it back to Public Works.
Joel, is that acceptable? To reject the bid and send back to Public Works. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion to reject carries. Item 39, award of base bid with no trade-in for 2 current model year skid steer loaders opened September 1, 2015 to the lowest responsible bidder, RDO Equipment Company, in the amount of $101,000. Can I have a motion?
Mayor?
Amanda Scott.
Thank you. Since it's a little silent up here, under the same original comments that I made on number 38, I will make on number 39, and that is, I agree with Alderman Estes. I'm sorry we missed one of the 3 that went out, but since there's been so much controversy, I make the motion that we reject this bid and send it back to Public Works.
Second by Ron Weifenbach. All in favor of rejecting this bid and sending it back, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to item number 40, council items and liaison reports, and we'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 40 is just an informational item. The consultants for Parks and Rec have begun the process for a master plan for Robbinsdale Park, and I just wanted to announce for those of you that either use or live near Robbinsdale Park, there is a master plan community input meeting November 19th from 6 to 8:30 at South Middle School, and Alderman Weifenbach and I would appreciate it if you can attend. It's not an info session, it's an input session, so come ready and prepared to share with the consultants what you'd like to see for that park. Thank you.
Move to acknowledge by Laurenti and seconded by Roberts. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to public hearing items now, items 41 through 46, and we'll open public comment on those items, and there are no speaker request forms, so we'll close public comment. And we'll go to consent public hearing items, items 41 through 43. Anyone want to remove any of those items from consent? Okay, so then Amanda Scott moved to approve 41 through 43 on consent, seconded by Charity Doyle, I think. All in favor of doing that signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to the non-consent public hearing items, and we'll go back to Amanda Scott for 44.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 44 is a second
Hold it.
reading of Ordinance 6071, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to low-density residential 1 district for property generally described as being located at 3400 North Elkvale Road. I make a motion to approve.
Second by Steve Laurenti. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 45.
Item number 45 is a second reading, ordinance number 6072, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Donna J. Lippert for a rezoning from general commercial district to medium residential district for property generally described as being located at 727 Franklin Street. I make a motion to approve.
Second by Darla Drew. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 46 is a second reading of ordinance number 6073, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Renner and Associates LLC for a rezoning from general commercial district to office commercial district for property generally described as being located at 1240 East Minnesota Street. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to the bill list. Item number 47. Pauline?
There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,365,543.60.
To approve by Laurenti, second by Wright. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Estes and Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.